Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going way back, opening up Herodotus's The Histories. We've got the George Rawlinson translation here.
That's right. We're looking at some of the earliest recorded interactions, really, between the Greeks and the major powers in Asia.
And our mission today is to see how Herodotus frames the start of this big, centuries-long conflict, focusing on one particular king.
King Croesus of Lydia. His story is just incredible, and Herodotus uses it to explore some huge themes: fate, power, happiness itself.
Herodotus lays out his plan pretty clearly, doesn't he? He wants to make sure the great deeds, both Greek and barbarian, his word for non-Greek peoples, aren't forgotten.
Exactly. And crucially, he wants to understand the reasons for the conflict, the grounds of their feud, as he puts it. He's like an investigator asking, how did this all kick off?
It's interesting, he starts with the Persian account.
And it's not what you might expect. They blame it on, like, a series of tit-for-tat kidnappings. Phoenicians grabbing Io.
Right. Then Greeks take Europa and Medea.
Yeah. And then Paris takes Helen. But the Persians apparently saw the Greeks launching a massive invasion of Asia over Helen as the real escalation, turning these, individual wrongs into outright war between continents.
So the invasion itself was the crossing of a line for them.
That seems to be the view Herodotus records. But then he says, okay, let me tell you about the first guy I know of who actually committed injustices against the Greeks.
And that's Croesus.
Croesus of Lydia, son of Alyattes. His empire was just west of the Halys River, fabulously wealthy, partly from gold dust washed down from Mount Tmolus, apparently.
And Herodotus notes he was the first non-Greek ruler to actively subdue Greek cities, making some pay tribute while others became allies.
Yeah, he dealt directly with them. Herodotus gives a little backstory on the dynasty, too, the Myrmidai. It started with Gyges, bit of a scandalous tale involving King Candle's wife.
We don't need all the details, but there was an oracle involved.
Yes, the oracle confirmed Gyges, but also prophesied that revenge for overthrowing the old line would come in the 5th generation.
And Croesus is number 5.
Bingo. And by his time, Lydia is booming. Wealth, power, influence, which sets up that famous encounter with Solon, the Athenian lawgiver.
Right, the classic story. Croesus shows off all his treasures and asks Solon essentially, am I not the happiest man alive? He's clearly expecting a yes.
Oh, absolutely. But Solon just deflates him. He names Tellus of Athens first.
Tellus. Why him?
Because Tellus lived a good life, saw his children and grandchildren thrive, and died gloriously in battle for Athens. Then Solon mentions Cleobus and Veto.
The brothers who pulled their mother's cart to the festival?
That's them. And their reward from the goddess Hera was basically a peaceful, honored death in their prime. Solon's whole point, and it's central to Herodotus, is that human fortune is incredibly fickle. You can't call anyone truly happy until you see how their entire life ends.
Powerful stuff. A direct challenge to Croesus's pride in his current situation.
And Herodotus hints that maybe because of that pride, that hubris, divine vengeance starts to close in.
It begins with a personal tragedy, right? His son, Aetus.
Yeah, a really terrible story. Croesus dreams Aetus will be killed by an iron weapon. So he takes every possible precaution, pulls him from military command, won't let him hunt, removes all weapons from his vicinity.
Trying to outsmart fate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then this giant boar starts ravaging the countryside. Aetus begs to go hunt it. Croesus reluctantly agrees, putting him under the protection of a guest, Adrastus, an exile. Croesus had kindly purified of accidental blood guilt.
Oh no, I think I see where this is going.
You got it. During the hunt, Adrastus throws his spear at the boar, misses, and accidentally strikes and kills Aetus. The dream comes true in the most unforeseen, tragic way. Iron weapon, just as predicted.
Devastating. And this happens after Solon's warning about fortune.
So Croesus is grieving, perhaps feeling vulnerable, and he's also watching the rise of this new power, Cyrus the Great and the Persians, who've just overthrown the Medes.
So he decides he needs answers, needs guidance.
He turns to the oracles, particularly the famous one at Delphi. But first, he tests them, a really clever test. He sends messengers to ask all the major oracles what he, Croesus, is doing on a specific predetermined day.
And what was he doing?
Something deliberately bizarre. Boiling a tortoise and a lamb together in a brass cauldron.
Wow. Very specific.
And Delphi gets it exactly right. The Pythoness describes the smell of lamb and tortoise shell, the brass pot. Croesus is utterly convinced.
So now he trusts Delphi. What does he ask?
2 big questions. Should he attack Persia? And should he make alliances with any Greek states?
And the answers.
Famously ambiguous, the oracle says, if you attack Persia, you will destroy a mighty empire. And second, ally yourself with the most powerful of the Greeks.
Okay, destroy a mighty empire. That sounds promising if you're Croesus.
That's exactly how he takes it. He assumes it must mean the Persian Empire. The thought that it could be his own seems not to cross his mind.
The tragic flaw. And the allies.
He inquires and finds the Spartans are considered the most powerful, so he makes an alliance with them.
So, brimming with misplaced confidence, he marches against Cyrus.
He crosses the Halys River, which was the traditional boundary. There's an initial inconclusive battle. Croesus decides to fall back to his capital, Sardis, for the winter, planning to summon his allies, Spartans, Egyptians, Babylonians, for a bigger campaign in the spring.
But Cyrus doesn't wait.
Nope. Cyrus presses his advantage immediately, follows Croesus right back to Sardis, catches him completely off guard.
And there's that story about the cavalry battle.
Right. The Lydian cavalry was apparently top-notch. But Cyrus, on the advice of a Mede named Harpagus, puts his baggage camels in the front line.
Camels?
Yeah. Apparently horses can't stand the sight or smell of camels. It threw the Lydian cavalry into total confusion, routed them. The Lydians had to dismount and fight bravely, but they were pushed back into the city.
So Sardis is besieged. How does it fall? It was meant to be impregnable, wasn't it?
Largely, yes. But like many supposedly impregnable places, there was one weak spot. A Persian soldier saw a Lydian accidentally drop his helmet down a steep, unguarded section of the cliff and then climb down to get it.
Showing the way up.
Exactly. The Persian soldier noted the path, led a group up that night, and the city was taken by surprise.
And this leads to that incredibly dramatic scene. Croesus captured, placed on a huge funeral pyre by Cyrus.
As the flames are lit, Croesus, facing death, suddenly remembers the words of Solon. He cries out his name, Solon, Solon.
Cyrus hears this.
Yes, and asks through interpreters what he means. Croesus explains Solon's visit and his warning that no one can be called happy until they're dead.
And this affects Cyrus.
Deeply. He sees Croesus, another great king, brought low. He reflects on the instability of fortune, maybe sees his own potential future mirrored. He immediately orders the fire put out.
But it's too late.
The flames are raging. Then Herodotus says, Croesus prays aloud to Apollo, who he had honored greatly. And suddenly clouds gather and a massive downpour extinguishes the pyre. Divine intervention.
Wow, so Croesus is saved? What happens then?
He ends up becoming an advisor to Cyrus, ironically. He gives Cyrus some pretty wise counsel. And he makes one request.
Which is?
To send his own fetters, his chains, to Delphi, and ask the god if it was customary for him to deceive those who honored him.
Taking the god to task. What did Delphi say?
The Pythoness explains everything. She says fate is inescapable. Croesus had to pay for the sin of his ancestor Gyges, 5th generation back. But Apollo did help him. He delayed the fall of Sardis by 3 years and saved him from the fire.
And the oracle about the empire?
The Pythoness points out it was true. He destroyed a mighty empire his own. And he failed to ask which empire. Also, he misunderstood the prophecy about a mule ruling the Medes. Cyrus, being half Median mother and half Persian father, a subject people, was the mule.
So the fault wasn't with the oracle's truthfulness, but his understanding.
Precisely. And Herodotus says Croesus heard this and acknowledged the fault was his, not the gods.
It's such a complete narrative arc. Herodotus also packs in these interesting details about Lydia, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, the gold dust, the invention of coinage, which is huge. Even things like how they supposedly invented dice and other games during a famine to distract themselves, and how some Lydians supposedly emigrated and became the Taurinians or Etruscans in Italy. It shows his ethnographic interest too.
He's painting a whole world.
Absolutely. And this story of Croesus, the first aggressor, sets the stage for the larger Persian Wars that Herodotus will chronicle. It's not just history. It's a profound exploration of human limits in the face of destiny and divine power.
Looking back at this deep dive, you can really see Herodotus weaving it all together. Personal choices, prophecies, accidents, divine will, maybe even ancestral curses.
It's a complex picture of cause and effect.
So here's something to think about. Given how Herodotus presents Croesus' story, the unavoidable fate from Gyges, Apollo's interventions, the ambiguous oracles, Croesus' own choices and misinterpretations, what does this blend suggest to you about how the ancient Greeks wrestled with the balance between destiny and individual free will? Where did they see agency truly lying?